And, in this sense, it's sort of propaganda. I'm very concerned because, that phrase, threat to democracy, is really the so-called existential threat of the country if it's true. So what I want to get out of you, Victor, who's so knowledgeable about history, political history, what is really this concept of a threat to democracy? What is a legitimate threat to democracy historically, and has this kind of phraseology been used in the past?
It has, but it usually refers to a true insurrection, either a political candidate or a political force or a party that decapitates the government or has the ability or says it's going to do it. We haven't had, a threat to democracy was the Civil War, or during the MacArthur period. I don't think that was a serious threat in the sense that the right that was going after communists in Hollywood were going to be successful in getting rid of the First Amendment, for example, because there were legitimate security issues. But in this context, it belongs to a whole vocabulary, because you know as well as I do that hate speech is used also by the left to attack free speech. And election denialism is used by the left to attack free and unfettered questioning of sometimes dubious balloting. So the left does this. It uses these pejoratives to obfuscate what they're doing. There is a threat to democracy. And what is that threat? In my view, it's the weaponization of unelected people in the administrative state. What do I mean by that? I mean, in the election of 2016, the FBI hired a foreign national, Christopher Steele, to create a false dossier, and then they seeded it among government and the media, and it was paid for in addition by Hillary Clinton through 3 paywall. The FBI, for example, offered him $1 million, Steele, and he couldn't substantiate one element, and then an FBI lawyer forged a FISA document, an affidavit. In the 2020 election, the FBI had this laptop that they knew was genuine, and yet they kept mum. Why Anthony Blinken, the current Secretary of State, and the former interim director of the CIA, Mike Morrell, got 51 quote-unquote authorities from the investigatory and intelligence bureaus to lie and say that this was a hallmark of Russian disinformation, which was used by Joe Biden to mislead the election. Or in 2020, whatever one thinks of Donald Trump, the fact that 4 prosecutors may have 500 indictments. Charles Manson didn't earn 500 indictments. So it's a use of the levers of government to warp elections and to be exempt from the consequences of their activity. We've had 4 subsequent FBI directors. They all have one thing in common. Robert Mueller misled the country when under oath he said he didn't know what Fusion GPS or Steele were. And then, of course, James Comey claimed amnesia 245 times under oath, and Andrew McCabe, admittedly, by his own admission, lied 4 times to federal investigators, and then Christopher Wray has just been stonewalling. They all have one thing in common: there were no consequences. That's a threat to democracy.
Right, and I think this is, to me, this is the threat to democracy is when the people in power, whether elected or not, really, have no accountability to the people. And because to me, the accountability, the founding of the country is based upon limitations of the people in power, right? This part of the limitation is the accountability, and accountability by election isn't enough. We need to have accountability. So how do we ensure accountability? One of the ways, and I think these have been lost, and this is what I'd like to get your thoughts on, the accountability from my lifetime has been number one, the investigative journalism side of things.
Yes, that's
the
one
media
way.
has always been a lever insisting and holding these people in power to account. That to me has been gone, has been removed, because the media is a gross failure in being an objective, truth-seeking body. Similarly, the courts have been politicized. I mean, these to me are the real threats to democracy, whereas the people who keep claiming that people like Trump are threats to democracy, or electing Republicans is a threat to democracy, that claim is simply overtly self-contradictory, because they're claiming that democratic outcomes are threats to democracy.
Yeah. Well, there's a big asymmetry. It's not that Republicans are inherently more noble, although I think they are. That's not the point. The point is that there's an
Right.
adversarial media. So a Trump or a DeSantis understands when he says or writes something, he's going to meet a hostile media. So he's on